What would you do if your HOA called the cops on your family business at sunrise for fixing a fence on your own land, like? Imagine sipping coffee while officers march into your vines because Karen says your grapes are a threat to property values. Wild. Right. My name's Marcus Thornfield. A few years back, I was a corporate attorney in San Francisco, billing $400 an hour, wearing suits that cost more than most folks' mortgage payments. Then, life did what life does. My marriage blew up. Turns out my ex preferred my law partner, and the courthouse took my savings faster than a casino slot machine. I ended up broke, bruised, and holding the deed to my late grandfather's vineyard in Solstice Valley. 40 acres of old vines, creaking farmhouse, irrigation, older than disco. But the first morning I woke up there, dew on the grape leaves. German shepherd named Beryl, patrolling like a furry security guard man. It felt like oxygen. After years of boardrooms and backstabbing, pruning at dawn felt like therapy I didn't know I needed. Enter the villain Karen Hartwell. Picture a former city council climber who lost an election and decided to run a fiefdom called the Solstice Heights HOA. White SUV that's never seen a dirt road. Hair sprayed like a helmet. Clipboard like a weapon. She's married to Preston Hartwell, local developer who builds beige palaces that look copy-pasted. The spark, I replaced the broken fence along my property line. Basic farm work. Standard agricultural wire to keep deer out and drunk wedding guests in. I'm mid-dig. Sweat mixing with dust. When Karen click-clacks over in heels like she's inspecting a runway. That fence violates our aesthetic standards, she says. I lean on my post-hole digger. Ma'am? This farm's been here since 1962. Your HOA's been here. What? 3 years. She smiles like a cat that smelled cream. Rules are rules. 2 days later, a certified letter lands like a brick cease and desist. Unauthorized structures. Threats of $500 a day in fines. She CCs the county, my bank, and the local paper. Not a neighborly gripe, a coordinated hit. I sat at my kitchen table, letters spread out, coffee going cold, and something clicked. People forgot I'd spent 15 years doing real estate law. My grandfather's deed. I remembered. Held agricultural protections that don't bend for suburban feelings. So I pulled records till midnight and called my law school buddy, Jake Morrison, an environmental attorney with a spine of steel. Buddy. He laughs. Someone just poked a sleeping bear. Beryl thumps his tail like he agrees. Morning mist. Grape leaves. Sirens in the distance. Yeah. That happened. Karen had actually called the police on me for repairing fencing. 2 officers walked the rows. Radios crackling. Professional and calm. I showed paperwork, permits, and the agricultural exemption my grandfather filed back when folks still respected dirt under their nails. The officers nodded, took notes, and left. Karen filmed the whole thing like she was making a nature documentary about criminals. The county inspector, Rodriguez, came out for a routine visit after an anonymous tip. He checked the old barn from 1965. The equipment shed from 1998. And even my root cellar. You're solid, he said. Whoever filed this complaint doesn't understand rural zoning. I could practically smell Karen's perfume on that anonymous form. And that's when I knew this wasn't about fences. It was about pressure. The HOA called an emergency board meeting about beautification standards and agricultural eyesores impacting property values. Translation: get rid of Marcus. I walked in just to breathe the same air as whatever nonsense they'd prepared. The community center smelled like carpet cleaner and anxiety. 30 neighbors sat like hostages. Karen ran the stage with a slide deck about neighborhood character and a petition she waved around like scripture. Then, real Solstice folks stood up. Mrs. Patterson, retired teacher. Backbone, like Rebar said. Marcus's family is why this valley exists. A few heads nodded. Karen's smile cracked half an inch. She tabled the vote and whispered with a suit whose briefcase screamed billable hours. Back home, I dug deeper into public records. Preston owned more land than anyone guessed. 3 developments built. 2 planned. And he'd been scooping up farm parcels for years. The math: agricultural dirt sells cheap. Rezone it residential, and boom, instant gold. If they could bully me into selling, Preston scores millions. I'd seen this playbook. So, I hired a surveyor and ordered a full title search back to the Eisenhower era. 3 days later, I get news that makes me laugh out loud over my coffee. My property line extends 50 feet into the backyards of 3 HOA houses. My grandfather granted construction easements, but never sold the soil. Classic farm move: rent the rights. Never sell the ground. Bonus: a utility easement runs straight through the subdivision power. Water. Access legally protected, like a freeway. Karen doubled down. She launched a Facebook group called Concerned Neighbors of Solstice Valley, where my tractor became a doomsday machine, and my delivery vans turned into speeding death wagons. People who'd waved at me for years suddenly looked through me at the grocery store. My bank started reviewing my routine financing. That hurt, not gonna lie, but it also told me I was over the target. I kept digging. One night, under the buzzing lights of a county records room that hasn't been updated since the Carter years, I found a misfiled document from 1987 Solstice Valley's historic agricultural district designation. It requires environmental impact studies for any development within 2 miles of heritage vineyards. Impact studies Preston never filed. That's not an oops, that's a house of cards. Jake's voice on the phone went from amused to electric. Marcus. If that's accurate. We're not talking HOA fines anymore. We're talking fraud. Possibly racketeering. And, I ain't ashamed to say I fist-pumped like a teenager. When bullies can't win clean, they get dirty. My irrigation line was sliced one night. Bolt cutter clean bleeding thousands of gallons across the best Pinot block. Wedding clients got anonymous calls about chemical contamination. Fake reviews popped up saying my wine tasted like vinegar and the brides got food poisoning. Creative fiction, but damaging. Jake filed for a restraining order against HOA harassment. 18 beautiful pages that basically said, touch the farm again and face contempt. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Bennett, a soil scientist from the State University, walked my fields and traced how bad grading and septic from Preston's projects were already stressing our water table. Her report read like a true crime piece about dirt. Miguel Santos. Father Miguel, to most folks, runs a worker center and knows every farm family in 3 counties. He brought stories I hadn't heard other families pushed, prodded, and priced out by concerned neighbors and selective enforcement. Patterns. Inside the HOA, cracks spread. 3 board members resigned, citing ethical concerns. Preston's cash position looked worse by the week. He'd leveraged to the hilt. betting on permits that shouldn't exist. A desperate man makes loud mistakes. He showed up at my gate at dawn with a briefcase and a fake smile. Offered me $4 million cash if I'd sign in 48 hours. Generous compromise. He called it. I told him I wouldn't sell for $10 million and my soul thrown in. His mask slipped. You don't know who you're fighting. I did. Actually. And sorry I was wired. Agent Rodriguez, from that first inspection federal. Turns out, the feds pay attention when impact studies vanish and money moves funny. Karen. She went full conspiracy on social media. 20 posts a day. IRS rumors. Dangerous chemicals. Gossip about my divorce. You could see followers backing away like she'd started shouting at clouds. Meanwhile, we built a team. Jake handled filings. Dr. Bennett mapped the damage. Father Miguel organized the valley. I upgraded cameras, documented every incident, and stacked evidence like cordwood. Ethel, the courthouse legend, with filing cabinets in her bones, found the original heritage packet that proved any competent developer would have known the rules. Which means violations weren't accidents. They were choices. I was, kinda having fun. Not the pain, the clarity. Using my old skills for something that mattered, felt good. We scheduled a community mediation. Neutral room. Neutral mediator. But we invited local television. The state attorney general's office sent observers. Federal folks sat in the back like church deacons. The town hall packed up fast. Standing room only. Karen entered in a power suit and a practiced smile. Waving a petition like a magic wand. Preston arrived with 2 lawyers and a cologne cloud. The air tasted like coffee and panic. Karen went first. Long speech about rules, harmony, and my illegal commercial operation. She pronounced commercial like I was manufacturing moonshine instead of growing grapes. Preston followed, offering to buy me out for the greater good. My turn. I kept my voice steady. I laid out the original deed with agricultural rights from 1962. The survey showing HOA yards on my dirt. The utility easements. Dr. Bennett's photos of erosion and septic issues. Email chains. Bank records. The 1987 heritage designation and the missing impact studies. I explained carefully how repeated false filings and creative permitting can add up to wire fraud and mail fraud. In my opinion, I said, because words matter, this looks like a coordinated scheme to pressure farms, inflate land values, and move money through entities that don't smell right. The room murmured. Cameras whirred. Karen's jaw worked like she'd bitten a lemon. Preston went pale. I nodded toward the back. And in case anyone thinks this is just neighbor drama, state and federal teams have been reviewing these records. That's when badges flashed. Quiet as a whisper. And papers were served. No shouting. No cuffs in the moment. Just the soft thunder of consequences finally catching up. You could feel the valley take a breath it had been holding for years. Investigations take time. Sure. But sunlight is instant. Builders paused projects. Lenders froze lines. Homeowners started asking hard questions. The HOA held an emergency election, and Karen, well, she didn't win. Months later, in open court, a judge used phrases I won't forget. Systematic exploitation, environmental vandalism, deception of purchasers. Some penalties were civil, some criminal, and I'll say this the careful way, folks, faced consequences consistent with the evidence authorities gathered. Solstice Valley doubled down on preservation. The county strengthened the heritage overlay. Our farmers formed an alliance that meets weekly in my barn coffee. Laughter. And a shared oath, nobody stands alone again. Father Miguel's sermons about tending the garden we've been given started packing pews. Ethel began writing a book about filing cabinets and crooks. Dr. Bennett moved her field equipment into my farmhouse mudroom and... Yes. Moved her toothbrush in too. Life can surprise you. Business rebounded. Media coverage turned Justice Valley wine. Yeah. We rebranded into a local staple. Weddings booked out 2 years. Beryl got a rescue partner named Justice, who can smell trouble from 2 counties over. Kids now tour the vines in spring and learn food doesn't appear by magic under fluorescent lights. Those half-finished beige castles, the ones that ignored the rules. The county required real fixes where possible and tore down the rest. Turning corridors into habitat again. Watching wild quail return to hedgerows. That'll put a lump in your throat. I still remember my grandfather's hands thick. Scarred. Gentle on tender shoots. He'd say, "Land remembers who loves it." When I almost sold my soul to billable hours. I forgot that. The valley reminded me. One sunset. Miguel said, "Brother, they tried to make you an example." He smiled. They still did, just not the way they planned. We laughed. And I swear the vines rustled like they were laughing too. Sometimes I bump into former HOA folks at the farmer's market. Some apologize. Some don't. It's fine. Fear makes people do silly things. Greed makes them do worse. But community, real community, makes both of those small. You know I'm not perfect. I can be stubborn as a fence post. I said things out loud that maybe should have stayed inside my head. But I learned to lead with receipts, not rage. Facts are quieter than rumors and twice as sharp. If you're watching this thinking, my HOA is pulling the same stunt. Here's the simple playbook, not legal advice. Just neighbor to neighbor. Gather your papers, deeds, easements, permits, old surveys. Farms hide superpowers in dusty folders. Write numbers in words. Dates in full. Timelines in order. Bullies hate clarity. Document everything. Keep a calm log. Phone calls. Letters. Photos. Screenshots. Build a team, a lawyer who knows land. A scientist who knows soil. A community leader who knows people. Speak carefully. Say, in my opinion. Based on records. As I understand it. Truth doesn't need chest thumping. Don't fight alone. There's folks who'll stand with you if you ask. And yeah, take a breath. Go walk your fence line at sunrise. Touch the leaves. Remember why you're fighting. Dawn breaks different now. Mist lifts off the vineyard like a curtain on a stage we earned. Beryl and Justice sprint the rows. Dr. Bennett Sarah tucks a curl behind her ear. Checks a soil probe. And shakes her head at my dad jokes. The valley hums like a well-tuned tractor. Karen. She's a cautionary tale I keep in my rear view. Preston schemes. A footnote. The headline is, Community. The headline is, Law working the way it should. Because regular people refuse to be quiet. So let me ask you this. What would you do if your HOA tried to crush your livelihood over a petty grudge? Would you sell? Would you fight? Drop your story in the comments where you're watching from. What those rules look like, where you live. Anyone else had an HOA pull something like this? Hit subscribe for more real stories. where suburban tyrants get dragged into daylight and neighbors win their homes back. 'Cause here's the part the bullies never plan for when good people share knowledge. Stand shoulder to shoulder and keep every receipt. The truth shows up, and it tastes better than the finest wine I've ever bottled.